Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Arsenal Canon Podcast Extravaganza episode 126. It's the first one after the drunk cast, the amazing drunk cast. Thank you for all your support on that. Thank you for everyone that listened. It did decent numbers, and I'm glad you enjoyed it because the feedback was decent. And yeah, we had a little break after that because we thought, that's the sort of season ender for last season. And we're now going into the new season. It was like a little natural break. And hopefully from here on in until the season starts and through the season will be weekly as much as possible. And, in the next week or so, we'll start talking about pre-season and the games. We'll have some football games to talk about, which is exciting. But anyway, yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see that I have been exposed by the sun a little bit. And so is Rob. Rob. And that, I guess, brings me to the only other person on this podcast. Unfortunately, Mac and Danny have ducked out again. It's really poor from them. Don't know what's happening to them. They've obviously gone downhill a bit. That's a joke. They're just busy. Rob, Bob, Bertha, the man with a versatile name. What are you saying?
Yeah, I'm very good. It's nice to be finally recovered from the drunk cast. It's taken a long time to get back to my best, but here I am, and back for all the avid Arsenal Canon podcast, listeners and watchers now. I think it's a good time to sort of look ahead to the new season. Quite a lot of things have materialized in the last few days. We can talk about what is going to happen and what potentially isn't going to happen. I think that might be a bit more significant in the context of this video, that latter point, just because it's the thing that everyone's talking about at the moment. I'm sure everyone knows what I'm talking about, but looking forward to getting into it. How are you, Alf?
Sorry. I'm decent. Yeah. It's been a decent week for Arsenal, but there's also something, as you said, that looks like it might not happen now, but it's an interesting discussion to have. Let's just dive straight into it. Actually, before that, little plugs. Go and follow myself at Alfie Culshaw on Twitter and Rob at AFC Blogger 49. Is it? There's an underscore in there somewhere, isn't there?
Yeah, AFC _Blogger 49. Go get it.
I always forget where that underscore is, but yeah, go follow that up, and obviously subscribe to the YouTube channel whether you're watching it or if you're on Spotify. If you want to listen, it's fine. There's just not too much visual elements to this, but you get to see our faces. So, and we're both pretty peng. I don't know why I said that. That's just cringe. Just fucking subscribe and that. Oh god. Let's start with just embarrassing myself. Let's start with the deal that has happened or is about to happen. We're all waiting for the announcement. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes at some point in this podcast, and if it does, we'll obviously say that. Gabriel Jesus is an Arsenal player. We spoke about it in a video a few days ago, so check that out. But we're going to speak about it again because, it's basically a done deal. We're all excited. He's been pictured today or videoed today walking around the Emirates in a Jesus 9 shirt, which is really exciting to see. We're just waiting for that imminent official announcement. The way I look at it, Rob, is there were 3 players who were all the subject of interest of the 3 big London sides, Chelsea, Spurs and Arsenal. Richarlison, Raphinha and Gabriel Jesus, all supposedly linked with all 3 of those clubs. And it looks like each side is going to get one of them. Richarlison obviously going to Everton, and Raphinha, it looks like he'll be going to Chelsea. Looking at it like that, I think we have the best player for the lowest price. Some people may disagree with that. Some people may look at the fact that he's playing for City and obviously he's going to look better in that team. Some people may say, he's got a year left on his contract, so are you getting it for the best price realistically? But I think that. I think he's the only player who's verging on elite, maybe is elite. He's probably had a few elite seasons, whereas the other 2 are good players. I think Raphinha's a level above Richarlison, but I don't think they're at Jesus' level. So I think we've got the best of the 3. How would you feel about that? And just give me your thoughts on Jesus and how excited you are.
Yeah, I think the evidence is obviously there for him being the best in the three. He's a player who's consistently played in the Champions League since coming over to Europe. He scored goals in big games in the Champions League, and he's been playing for one of the best sides in the world. And I know that doesn't automatically make you sort of one of the best players in the world. You know, City have players like Nathan Ake, who quite obviously isn't one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League. But Jesus is a player of high calibre. He is a Champions League footballer, and I think Raphinha probably is too. In fairness to him, I'm not going to sort of change my opinion of Raphinha just because he's not coming to us. I think we're all guilty of that sometimes, of going back and forth just because rumours aren't going our way. I still think Raphinha is a fantastic player who would have really elevated our attack and added a different flavour. And I think he's close to Jesus, perhaps not there yet because he just hasn't been tested at that high level. You never know with these sorts of players. They might come from a lower side like Leeds and then be not quite as good because, I don't know, they were just the spotlight player, a bit like Jack Grealish at Villa, who, you know, had a decent season for City but wasn't what he was at Villa. And then Richarlison, I've got to say, I've never really rated him that much. So I'm quite pleased that we were never like that interested in him. And
£60 million that came for him.
I know. I look forward to him having... I can see him having a decent season and then Conte going and then him just being like a tormenting that dressing room because he's not the best character to have around, and I'd imagine that's one of the key reasons we didn't go for him this summer.
Yeah, we were linked, but I don't think there were ever substantial links to him or particularly reputable sources saying. And I do think we'll touch on Chelsea and Spurs' recruitment a little bit because it does relate to us. But yeah, Jesus, I said this in our little video. I see a lot of parallels between this deal and the Alexis Sanchez deal. And I feel like people don't feel like that because they have a slightly warted perception of Jesus at City, mainly because he's never been the main man. We all know about his underperformance at XG, how he's not lethal in front of goal at times. But I just think, it has similarities. It's a player coming in his prime. I think Sanchez was 25, 26 when he joined us. It's a player who has been at a very big club or one of the best teams in Europe for the last 4 or 5 seasons and been, pretty good for them. Never like the key man, but has been pretty good. He is stepping down slightly a level to be a main man at this club. He's South American, I guess. That's another similarity. And, that similar sort of brilliant output levels at those clubs, just, again, not getting the recognition. And he's coming for sort of a similar fee. It's not the absolute elite, biggest fee, but it's like Sanchez was 35 million, and that was in 2014. So that's probably a bit more than what you'd say in terms of inflation adjusted rates, blah, 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 than what Jesus is. But yeah, I think he has the potential to be at a similar level of Alexis Sanchez for us. I think he could be transformational. If you look at our striker last season, Lacazette, he did some good stuff in terms of the way Arteta wanted him to play, dropping into those pockets, and progressing us up the pitch, but we completely lost any goal threat from him because he just wasn't physically capable. Eddie Nketiah came in and did decently, and I think he's a player could be very integral next season, but he's not of Jesus' caliber. The XG underperformance is interesting. We've spoken about it in a video. I also think it's an area where players tend to when they get into their prime, really explode in terms of the output. And I think his finishing will improve under us. But it's not something that particularly worries me. How would you feel about that? And yeah.
I think what we've sort of spoken a lot about with Jesus is that, fortunately, if all doesn't really go to plan, it will matter, obviously, because he's our marquee striker signing, and the idea giving him the 9 shirt is for him to play through the middle. But on the other hand, like if it is proven that he's just not a clinical finisher, we've still got a great player on our hands who can play across the front three. And he's got so much more to offer in his game than just goals. I mean, excuse me for like sort of talking about a new striker and then talking about what he does off the ball rather than on it. But his pressing is sensational. I think that he is really going to be a really crucial asset to us in that regard.
Someone I can't remember who it was. Someone said that he's the best pressing forward in the world.
No, both Guardiola and the Brazilian coach Tite have said that, which is high praise. Tite is a really good manager as well. So we're talking about a guy who is going to transform the way we can play on so many levels, and if he can add 15, 20 goals to this team, great. But he adds so much more to that, and I anticipate other players in and around him scoring more goals due to his presence. Lacazette did somewhat help in that regard. The goal against Manchester City, a day that Jesus scored against us. Saka scored a great goal because Tierney put in a cross and Lacazette dragged the defender away. Lacazette did have decent attributes, and I think it's that pretty good run that he had is overlooked, like the one that he had last season. But yeah, I think Jesus just has so much more, and it's not like he's going to score no goals, is it? I think he'll be scoring on a pretty consistent basis for us next season, especially if he is given the reins as that sole number 9 in what is a highly functioning Arsenal attack when it's at its best.
Yeah, and just to reel off some of the numbers, I mean, 2017-18, 0.91 XG plus XA per 90. The following season, 1.03. The season after that, 0.99. This season, whilst playing out wide, 0.74. These are like elite underlying metrics. And when I say elite, like some of the best in the world. He's getting 3 to 4 shots a game as a number 9. That's brilliant. He's getting 3 to 4 shot creating actions. And I know we talk about data, and you have to have a bit more nuance to it. And obviously, he's playing in a brilliant team, a brilliant system. But I mean, they're still great numbers. They still, there'll probably be a bit of a drop off coming to our team. But because we play in a similar system, he can slot in perfectly, and he'll produce a lot more than what we were getting from other players. On FBref, I know we talk about similar players as having some limitations, the similar player tool. But I mean, let me list off some of them. Nkunku, Luis Diaz, Sadio Mane, Raheem Sterling, Bukayo Saka, Kingsley Coman, Son Heung-min, Diogo Jota, Paulo Dybala, Karim Benzema, Kylian Mbappe, to name a few, as the similar players.
It's not bad company, is it?
Exactly. So he is putting up similar data to those players, which is, I mean, that tells you something. I think he could kick on and explode, and I think that is a huge signing. I'm so glad we've got it done. It is the priority signing of the summer. And if you'd given me, we're going to move on to Raphinha now, the one that may not be happening. But if you've given me the option of those 3 players, those 3 Brazilians that we're all chasing at those price points, I know it wasn't, they weren't mutually exclusive. It wasn't one or the other, but I would have bitten your hand off for Jesus out of those 3. Let's get on to the Raphinha saga then. It's been a bit of a whirlwind in the last few days. Chelsea out of nowhere, well, not out of nowhere, they were linked with him. But we were the front runners, supposedly. Now they have had an offer accepted from Leeds. I think it's 55 million plus 10 million in add-ons. We are supposedly still fighting to get him. I'm not convinced we're going to go up to that, but maybe we do. Maybe we have the finances. Who knows? If we were able to, I think Barcelona are out of the picture. By the way, I think that is definitely his preference, but I just don't think they have the finances to get it. I think it's between us and Chelsea to get that deal done. if does come down to Chelsea and Arsenal, how would you be selling to him from an Arsenal standpoint? Pick us over Chelsea. Let's say we match the offer, and it's literally down to the player. Leeds are out of the picture now. How would you be selling to Raphinha? Pick us over Chelsea, because I've heard reports that they want to play him at wing back. I think you said that to me the other day.
Yeah, I mean, there are those reports, and I think if that really is the case, which I'm still highly doubtful of, I think that he would play on that right flank for Chelsea as one of their inside forwards. But if that is the case, it's easy. You just say we can play you in your preferred attacking positions at Arsenal in sort of a. I'm not going to say we're similar to Leeds, but I guess under Bielsa, especially first season, the roles are sort of comparable. It's that sort of winger, sort of isolated winger thing. And I think it's important to remember as well that Arsenal, we've got so many Brazilians. I think that would be really attractive to him, and I think it probably was attractive to Jesus as well. Just the fact that you just know you're going to settle in at Arsenal if you're a Brazilian, because you're surrounded by so many fellow Portuguese speakers. And, it would be a great environment to come in and be part of. I also think that Arsenal have a really clear direction right now as to where we're going, whereas I think Chelsea's future is a bit fuzzy. It's great them going out and signing Sterling and Raphinha, and there's loads of talk about Dembele, and that's great. But they've sold Lukaku this summer, which is just a sign that last summer failed for them. It feels like the 10th summer in a row where they have this new £100 million front line. And for some reason, the media never really scrutinised that. But I feel like they should more, because their business is sometimes absolutely horrific. And
Kepa.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Drink water for 35 mil.
Ross Barkley for a similar price. There's so many examples out there of them just throwing money.
The thing is, under Abramovich, they could afford to get away with these terrible pieces of business. They may not be able to do that anymore under Todd Bowen.
No, probably not. And that might be part of the thinking in going for like sort of proven Premier League players in Raphinha and Sterling. But this isn't a Chelsea podcast. We're not going to talk too much about that scummy football club. But yeah, I think that there's still a really enticing aspect of it for Raphinha. I just can't really see us matching that Chelsea bid of 65 million. If I'm being completely honest with you, I'm just not sure it's worth it. I mean, he's a really, really good player, but it's 7 million off what we paid for Nicolas Pepe, and we always talk about that as a lot of money for a guy who, yes, he scored goals in Liga, but Raphinha this season, only a few non-penalty goals. And I'm not taking away what a brilliant player is. I think he's easily a £50 million player. But when you're getting up to those upper echelons, and Leeds also want a lot of the money, sort of straight up. They're not really up front. Yeah, exactly. Which could hamper the sort of business we can do elsewhere. So as I sort of wrote in my article last week, I wouldn't want this to be prioritised at the expense of either Lisandro Martinez or Yuri Tielemans. I'd rather we get those two than one Raphinha. And I'm sure there are other options out there. It's quite weird because we both do our work for Sport Bible, and we're sort of looking through the Liverpool lens because that's what we write about for them. But it's been sort of following this really closely because of all their links with forwards. And I think Dembele is really at the centre of it, because it looks like he might stay at Barcelona now, and hence Chelsea have made this move for Raphinha. But yeah, I really do see him going to Chelsea, and I'm at peace with that. I'm sure we have alternative options, which, maybe we can talk about.
Yeah. I'm at peace with it as well. I agree. I think if you think Raphinha can be an absolutely elite talent, I think you probably have to go out and get him for 60 million. I think over that, you know, it's a bit of a grey area, but you have to be sure that he is going to be an elite talent and be elite for you. Um, I don't know if the club are sure about that, and I think if Chelsea go out and sign him for 65 million and we made an effort at 50 million, I can make peace with it because we clearly didn't deem it worth it. And we clearly didn't think, yeah, he's going to be worth that. And we've got to remember, he isn't an absolutely nailed on, you know, starter every week for us. And that's a lot of money to be paying for a player who's, you know, he's going to play a lot, but he's not necessarily like the absolute necessity key piece to take us to the next level. I do. You said about him playing as a wide forward for Chelsea in that front three in the 3-4-3 they play. I think that doesn't suit him as well. I think if you look at all the sort of data points that Scott that crab on Twitter has put out, and his sort of his heat maps and his touch maps and where he's playing progressive passes from, he's very much on the touchline and a bit deeper. And maybe that's because of how Leeds play. And maybe he could adapt to playing in an inside forward role where he gets, you know, more shots and more central progressive passes and key passes. I don't know. But I think maybe he is suited to a wing back role in a weird way because his defensive output's pretty good as well. I don't know, but I don't think it would be what he'd prefer. And I do think he would fit more naturally into our system, as you said. I do want to touch on that. I know it's not the Chelsea Cannon podcast, or Chelsea podcast, but I do want to touch on there. I think it's funny because I think they look directionless, and I think that's understandable. They've just got a new owner, and he doesn't know the sport. He's made himself technical director. He's obviously successful in American sports, but he wants to bring trading in here, which would just never work in European football. I think it's going to take them a bit of time to adapt under this new manager, to settle in, owner. And I do think even if they make a few mistakes but aren't disastrous, that could really cost them, like those marginal mistakes. And I think it's one to look out for, that Chelsea may struggle a little bit in the next few years, even if they still have, you know, pretty strong financial power. I do think their recruitment so far looks quite all over the place. I mean, the links to Cristiano Ronaldo are hilarious. Anyway, yeah, Raphinha, I think we'll be at peace with it if it doesn't happen. And as you said right at the end there, I think we should prioritise Tielemans and Lisandro Martinez. And once we've got them done, I still think we want and need probably another wide player. I think that can be, you know, there's always in the transfer market, there's the initial like rush where people sign the players they've planned to sign, they've sort of recruited for ages. And then there's a lull period where not much happens. And then later in the window, when the dominoes start to fall, there's all these late moves. And I think that could be the period when we pick up our wide forward. Maybe something becomes available that we hadn't planned, you know, someone goes somewhere and that opens the door for someone else to leave, stuff like that. So I think that could be when we sign them. I do want to touch on, again, we're speaking about other clubs. I do want to speak about Tottenham because it does relate to us. And I'm quite optimistic about the way Chelsea and Spurs are moving at the moment. I know Spurs are strengthening their squad. Richarlison, as we said, it's a lot of money to pay for someone who doesn't even, again, like us, he's not a guaranteed starter for them every week. He is a good player. I think if you look at a lot of their other business, I've seen people putting it out. If this was Edu, we would be, you know, there would be criticism. You know, you look at Ivan Perisic, very good player. He's 33. You know, he might be able to give you one good year.
I mean, yeah. When we were linked with him a few years ago, weren't we? And there were already question marks about his age at that point. And you know, look at him now. He's 33, and I just think it's really odd because in the season where Inter won the league, I heard that Perisic sort of Conte didn't like him as a wing back, and that's what he's
I
been.
thought he used him quite a lot there.
I think
He
he
made him a
did.
wing back.
He did, but he really exploded as a wing back apparently under the new manager in Ghazi. Is it that they've got there?
I thought he Victor Moses him. Victor
Yeah,
Moses.
he might have. He might have. Anyway, enough on that. I think that Perisic is just such a weird one. Obviously, Fraser Forster, fine. It's a backup goalkeeper. Richarlison, he's a good player. He'll score goals, but he's not a guy that I'm jealous of them having per se. I really do think they've got areas of their squad which perhaps they haven't strengthened, which I think were perhaps more pressing priorities. I know they've got Perisic, but like right wing back was sort of disastrous for them last season. Like Emerson was.
Apparently they're in advanced talks to get Jed Spence.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think that would be a decent little bit of business. I don't know. I think in terms of what Spurs are as a a five at the back under Conte, they're all signings which makes sense, and we need to remember that sort of like different circumstances. They're obviously going to have different targets to us, but yeah, it's very short-term success gamble, I think. And if it all goes tits up and then Kane and Son leave next summer or whatever, that's the risk that they're playing. They're gambling hard, I think, this summer.
Yeah, they are going for that win now approach, which was calamitous for us just a few years ago. I think their recruitment's slightly better than what we did with the likes of Willian, David Luiz, etc. I think it could be good for them next season, maybe the season after that. But then, as you said there, I think they could implode, which is quite exciting from an Arsenal point of view. I think as soon as Conte is gone, which is going to happen in a year or two, he's not there for the long run. We know how Conte operates. That is potentially exciting. I think.
Well, let's face it, though. They might have a decent season. They might come third or fourth. I don't see them finishing above City or Liverpool at this point. Conte will say, give me another 200 million so I can try and challenge for the title. Levy will say no, and that will be that.
Yeah, potentially. I do think, what's his name? The technical director, Paratici.
Oh, yeah.
He seems quite competent, and I know he's done good jobs in the past, so maybe he'll be a saving grace for them, but I do think it's quite funny. Ibasuma is definitely a good signing, as much as he has some controversy around him. That is a good signing. I can't even deny. Yeah, it's an interesting one, that squad. But anyway, let's move on from Spurs. Let's move on from transfers in general. And this is the thing I wanted to talk about. They had a really interesting discussion about this on the Arsenal Vision podcast. And it was sort of sparked by seeing tweets of people saying, Arteta has no excuses not to finish in the top four now. And as much as I understand that notion, I have some issues with it. I think the main thing is context. Like, for example, people might have said at the start of last season, they probably didn't, Jurgen Klopp has to win Liverpool the title this season, otherwise he's gone. He gave them a 92-point season where they lost 2 games and drew 8 games and won 28, and they scored 90 plus goals. They didn't win the league. Is that a failure? Like, if we finish 5th on 76 points, that's a 7-point increase. We're playing better football. All the young players develop. We score, 15 more Premier League goals. Everything looks sustainable going forward. But 4 teams come above us, and they also improve. And maybe Spurs finish on 77, Chelsea finish on 79, Liverpool finish on 80, City finish on 85. 76 points most seasons gets you top 3 probably. You're only in control of your destiny to some extent. Like, you're in control of what you do, but other teams can do stuff as well. That's why I think that doesn't really make sense. I think you can't look at it as black and white as that. There have to be other things that you look at instead of just league position, if you get what I mean. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, I think it's a very sort of outlandish comment to make, the no excuses thing. I agree that you need to really think about what can happen over the course of a season. I would have said sort of, I don't know, before that Crystal Palace match, perhaps, that Arsenal have no excuses if they don't get top four. From that point in the season, I think that would have been a completely justifiable comment to make at that moment in time. But then Thomas Partey got injured, Kieran Tierney got injured. We were still without Tomiyasu. All the sort of solid foundations of our team began to collapse. And at that point, it's completely excusable to miss out, because you're sort of, whereas with our starting 11, where we somewhat expect to beat every team that we come up against, other than, the Liverpools and Cities. I think other than those two, we have a real shot at beating every single other team in the league. But when we don't have our full 11, we're nowhere near capable of beating every single team in the league. So, you've really got to contextualise and perhaps say no excuses for Arteta if he manages to keep his squad fit for the whole season, or no excuses for Arteta if we, I don't know, as you were touching upon, if it's sort of a normal season and Arsenal get, as you say, a certain number of points, which would usually achieve you a certain place in the Premier League, and we don't get it. I think I also do think no excuses is a very sort of forthright comment to make. I think there'll always be excuses in a football season that you can make along the way. We don't like to make excuses, but there's always things that we can turn to. Like last season, no one wants to talk about it, but the referees fucked us over week after week. And like, that is a valid excuse as to why we didn't get to the top four. But it's not like that's the reason, and we're looking back and like saying, those bloody refs. So I think it would also be sort of naive if at the end of next season we finish fifth with 75 points and we're like, it's all on Arteta. Like, that's just not how football works.
Yeah, and it works the other way, because if we next season finish fourth on 63 points, we've gone down, we've lost, we're 6 points worse off than the previous season. We score 5-6 fewer goals, we concede more goals. The metrics are worse. You would look at that and say, well, are there signs of progress? Are there signs of sustainable progress? Although we've achieved the top four finish, is that, I don't know if I'd say this, but I'd almost rather see us finish fifth with the previous outcome that I just said than we finished fourth and 63 points. I know that sounds stupid, but like, it shows signs of sustainable progress. And I wouldn't necessarily rather that, but I'd probably be praising Arteta much more if the former scenario happened, where we finished fifth on 76 points than finishing fourth on 64 points. There have to be indicators of progress. Like, I think on the Vast Division podcast, they described them as key performance indicators, KPIs. If we finish sixth or fifth and there's no signs of progress, we get fewer points, we score fewer goals, then probably does have to go. Like, we're stalling in our progress when theoretically we've got better players, so we should be better. Having said that, if we're fifth and if let's say we theoretically finished fifth on 82 points, I mean, that would be insane. Like, I don't see how that could happen. It would be a very strange season. But if that happened and we scored 80 goals, surely there can't be people saying he's got to go after that. Like, that is a very good season. Um, and obviously, there's other things to consider other than just the league. You know, there's the Europa League. I know it's hard to judge a manager based off knockout football, but you know, we should be getting far in that competition, and it should be an aim of us to win it. Obviously, if we don't win it, doesn't mean we should sack Arteta. But I just think you can't look at objectives that black and white. It's got to be. You've got to look at the context around it and how other teams are doing, because other teams exist. There's no. It's not the Wenger days where there were 4 teams and you had to fail. We had to be pretty bad not to get in the top 4. Like, as long as we were like at least somewhat decent, we'd make the top 4. Nowadays, there are 6, maybe 7 teams. You know, it's not just the top 6. Newcastle approaching. Leicester could easily bounce back. West Ham.
Yeah, there's a team every year that throw their hat in the mix. You know, we know that's been the Premier.
Exactly.
That's the nature of the Premier League.
Yeah, West Ham is strengthening as well. Like, it's not that, you know, there are 4 places up for grabs. It's not, there's no divine right to get in the top 4 nowadays, and we will have plenty of seasons in the next 10 years where we aren't in the top 4. Are they all going to be deemed failures now from then? Is every season we don't get in the top 4 a failure? You have to look at the context behind it. That's yeah. Those comments were annoying, and it's yeah. Anything to add on that conversation, Rob?
Yeah, I think it's just, you know, as great a job as Arteta has done, sort of objectively at Arsenal, in terms of the way he's turned around the dressing room, and the fact that we are now achieving sort of decent points tallies and the football is good. There's clearly a sector of the Arsenal fan base who just aren't on board with it, and that's cool. I think they're going to be there for as long as Arteta's at the club. You know, Arteta isn't going to be here as long as Arsene Wenger was. He will go eventually, and they'll all probably have a little party then. But yeah, I think over these summer months, it's important to remember how good the atmosphere was last season in the stadium. Regardless of what people thought about Arteta at the Emirates Stadium, we got behind the team every week. And when we're not going to the stadium every week, it's easy to assume that the atmosphere is sort of akin to social media. And it's just not true. Just people who put out these negative opinions, they get the clout that they desire because their opinions are just so unreasonable. And I'm not saying it's not a completely unreasonable opinion, because I think it is a reasonable opinion to say Arteta should go next season if we don't get Champions League, but with context, as we've said. So yeah, I think it's just important not to take too much away from sort of social media atmosphere.
Yeah, like, it's not. As I said before, you're not completely in control of your own destiny, because other teams can pick up points as well. Like, I mean, I guess you could say if you win every game, then you're going to finish first, aren't you? So you are, sort of. But, you know, realistically, it's not like it's a knockout competition. If you win, you know, your 6 games and you achieve your goal. Like, it's not as linear as that. I think that was a good point as well about the atmosphere and stuff. A lot of it is not just about the end goal; it's about the journey as well. You want to enjoy it as it's going along, like enjoy moments through the season, because, you know, only one team can win the Premier League. Only one team can win the Champions League. Most of the time, you're not going to be achieving those, you know, extremely big achievements. So you've got to enjoy other things about the aspects of football. You can't just be looking at those sorts of things. So yeah, it's a ridiculous statement, in my opinion, to say. I mean, I get where it derives from, and obviously that is going to be the target for next season, to get back into the Champions League. That has to be the target, but it doesn't mean that if we don't get it, it's a complete failure. It could be, depending on how we don't get it, but we could not get it, but be much better than we were this season, which is a positive, because it means we're heading in the right direction. It means it was probably more enjoyable along the way as well. Yeah, I don't really. This is all we sort of planned for. This is what happens in some of the summer videos when it gets to 40 minutes. Um, do you have anything else specifically you want to speak about, Rob?
Just on enjoying the ride. Are you looking forward to the trailer drop this week for the All or Nothing series? Are you looking forward to watching that or dreading it? What are your opinions on that?
Uh, I'm not looking again. I see what you sort of saying there. I think I'll enjoy some of the bits in it, the ride, but I'm not necessarily going to enjoy the end bit of it. I think it'll be very painful to relive some of those last few games. The Spurs game in particular. I'm looking forward to some of the insights into the dressing room. I think it'll be interesting. I know
Absolutely, yeah.
this is something that we spoke about when we heard that that there was going to be a documentary, and we were quite overtly negative about it. I think because of the influence it could cause in the dressing room, and it's never going to be that authentic, is it? Because cameras change people, and it will be a bit fabricated. Things will be,
Yeah.
so for example, dressing room stuff and like team talks are going to be, played up a bit for the cameras, so it's never going to be that authentic.
Yeah,
It's going to be a bit
importantly, the cameras can also be put away. They're not always there. So I think sometimes Amazon will need a shot, and Arsenal will probably produce it for them.
exactly. So it will be interesting, and I will be watching it. But I can't say I'm like I am looking forward to it in some aspects, but it's going to be a painful watch those later episodes or the very late episodes.
I think the first one as well will be really hard to watch.
The thing about that is that we know it's going to improve.
Yeah.
It will be quite painful to watch some of the excruciatingly over the top conclusions that some people came to after 3 games.
Because you just know that they've got, because on all the other ones they've got sort of big like not Arsenal fans, just big fans of the club that they're doing, and you just know they're going to have the most annoying Arsenal fan on it who's just completely way out in controversy with his opinion.
Well, do you remember? I think it was Max Mishkon, writer of We Love You Arsenal, was at the Tollington for watching a game, and the Amazon crew were there filming the Tollington.
Oh wow! No, I didn't remember that. That's cool.
I think it was the Sunderland League Cup game, but that might be wrong. It might be an away game, or it might be in West Ham. It was around that sort of December period. But he took a picture of the cameras, and they were in the Tollington, obviously trying to get some footage from fans and stuff. Yeah, so it will be interesting. This is looking like one of the shorter podcasts, but I think that is inevitable when
Absolutely,
it's midway through. It's been a decent chat about Raphinha, Jesus, and also our expectations for next season and top 4, and whether do we have no excuses if we don't get there, which we both said. I mean, there could be. We have to look at the context. We'll know at the end of the season how we feel. Like that is when we can deem whether there are excuses or not, if you know what I mean. Not before everything's happened. I think we have to assess it after everything's happened. Or partway through, if it's going absolutely appallingly, then he'll have to go, obviously. I don't think that needs to be said, but yeah. Pre-season starts next week, so obviously they've returned to London Colney. There was some fresh faces that we forgot are there, the likes of Bellerin, Maitland-Niles, Torreira.
Yeah, Bellerin.
Torreira wasn't there, sorry.
Really weird to see Bellerin there.
Yeah, I mean, Bellerin, Maitland-Niles must think, how am I still here? Like, it's mental. I'm coming back for another Arsenal training session. That sort of reminds us of some of the deals we need to get done on the other side of the spectrum, with players that have to go. Shout out Samaya's piece, she wrote about the sales that we need to start looking at the other day, and shout out Vinay's piece today about like our tactical flexibility that we're looking for and versatility in our recruitment strategy. And also shout out Jahid's piece yesterday about Edu, and his barbecuing, and that was quite funny. It was a good piece, good insight into Edu. Rob, any parting words before your marketing opportunity of a lifetime?
No, I don't think so. I'm going to take that opportunity to jump onto my marketing opportunity of a lifetime. And I'm just going to plug all the YouTube stuff that Alfie and I have been up to in recent weeks. It'll be on this channel if you're watching on YouTube, and a few on the Just Arsenal YouTube channel as well, which if you don't already see enough of our faces, you can go and see more on that channel. So yeah, just check out everything that we do on those platforms. Of course, Mac and Daniel pop up on those videos sporadically as well if you're missing them. So yeah, just check out all the stuff we're doing visually.
Go and do that, and check out the written stuff on weloveyourarsenal.co.uk. That'll be my plug. And follow our social medias and that'll be below. But anyway, yeah, thanks for that, Rob. We need a song.
Oh God, that is very tough at this point.
It's we could do like a gospel song.
A gospel.
Jesus.
Oh yes. What about Shine, Jesus, Shine? Did you ever sing that in assembly?
Probably.
You might.
I didn't go to a Catholic school, but probably still.
Oh no, neither. We just always sang like hymns and stuff at school. I don't know why. Yeah, go for that. Shine, Jesus, Shine. Great song.
Shine, Jesus, Shine. I bet it's a banger. Shout Jesus.
It really is. It really
is. It is. Well, thanks for listening or watching, whatever platform you're on. Leave a review or something. It's been a brief one, but we're glad to be back after our little break, and hopefully we'll be back weekly from here on in. I say here on in, like the world's going to end or something from now until whenever. And yeah, I guess Gabriel Jesus, welcome to the Arsenal. Hopefully we'll have some more coming, and yeah, see you later.
Goodbye.